The wreckage of the scout ship Thessaly's wing was still smoking when Vey'lara opened her eyes. Pain came first, sharp, electric, radiating from her lower spine where a support strut had crushed through her exoskeleton. Then came the silence. No comms. No rescue beacon response. Just the hiss of atmosphere leaking from a hull never designed to survive planetfall. She was Taziran, one of the Ashane Concord's second circle. A species that had charted 17 star systems before humanity had even split the atom. Her people did not crash. Her people did not need rescue. And yet here she was, half buried in alien mud on a world her charts hadn't even bothered to name, watching her own blood silver, thin, wrong-colored under this planet's dying orange sun pool beneath her. She had scanned this system before the engine failure. Class M world. Primitive agricultural readings. And one designation that made her both curious and afraid. Human colony. Population minimal. Threat assessment. Negligible. The Concorde had encountered humans twice before, in border skirmishes decades past. The reports called them reckless. Emotional. Short-lived. Not a threat. Not yet. Negligible. She thought, staring at the darkening sky, was about to become the difference between living and dying. The forest around her was wrong in every way her instincts catalogued. Too dense, too loud, too alive. Something with wings screamed overhead. Something with too many legs rustled through underbrush she couldn't see into. Her translator implant was dead. Her weapon was buried under 40 meters of collapsed hull plating. All she had was pain, and the slow certainty that she would die here, forgotten, among primitives who wouldn't even understand what they'd lost when her body stopped moving. That was when she heard the footsteps. Heavy, unhurried, human. Vey'lara's four hearts hammered. She had read the reports. She braced for violence, for capture, for the crude brutality her people whispered about in briefing rooms. She tried to drag herself backward into the shadows and only succeeded in tearing something in her side that made her vision white out with agony. A voice. Low, calm, and impossibly gentle. Hey, don't move. Okay? You're gonna hurt yourself worse. She looked up. A human. Female, she guessed from the frame. Smaller than the report suggested. Wrapped in worn work clothes. A tool belt slung low on her hips. No weapon raised. No triumphant sneer. Just wide, startled eyes taking in the wreckage. Taking in her. And something in that human face that Vey'lara had no name for. Oh, hell, the human whispered. Oh, hell, you're really hurt. Her name, Vey'lara would learn, was Callie Reyes, 26 years old. A grain farmer's daughter on a colony world barely 5 years settled. 3,000 light years from anything the Concorde would call civilization. She was not a soldier. She was not a diplomat. She had no authority, no training in xenobiology, no reason at all to kneel in the mud beside a creature that, by every metric her species used, was more than her older, stronger part of an empire that could erase her entire colony without a second thought. And she did it anyway. Okay? Callie muttered, mostly to herself, hands hovering over the wound like she was trying to remember every first aid class she'd ever half listened to. Okay, I don't know your anatomy, I don't know if this is even the right. Okay. Pressure. Pressure's universal, right? Please be universal. She pressed her jacket against the wound. Vey'lara's body screamed in protest. Wrong touch, wrong temperature, wrong everything, and still the bleeding slowed. Why? Vey'lara managed through her translator, now flickering weakly back to life from the proximity of Callie's own comm unit. Are you helping me? Callie blinked, like the question genuinely confused her. Because you're hurt. I am Ashane. Your intelligence reports label my people a threat. Lady, right now you're not an empire. You're just somebody bleeding out in my back 40. She tied the jacket off with practiced hands. We can be threats to each other tomorrow. Today I'm not letting you die in the mud. The rescue shuttle took 6 hours to reach them. 6 hours in which Callie never left. She talked, about nothing, about everything, about the grain harvest and her little brother and the stupid dog that kept digging under the fence. Not because Vey'lara cared, but because some instinct in this small, fragile creature understood that silence let pain win, and talking, however meaningless, was a rope thrown across the dark. When the cold began to set into Vey'lara's limbs, Callie gave up her own jacket, then her outer shirt, until she knelt in the alien night in nothing but a thin undershirt, shivering, refusing to stop. "You are cold," Vey'lara said. "You're colder." "I do not understand this math." Callie laughed. Actually laughed, exhausted and aching, and said the words that Vey'lara would carry in her memory banks for the rest of her long life. "It's not math. It's just what you do." When the Concord retrieval team finally arrived, weapons drawn, translators barking demands, they found their lost officer alive, stabilized, wrapped in a human's own clothing, with a human girl asleep sitting upright against the wreckage, still holding pressure on a wound that had long since stopped needing it. The commander of that team had read every report on humanity. Reckless, emotional, short-lived, negligible. He looked at the girl. He looked at his officer, breathing, living, because of hands that owed her nothing. "She is second circle," he said slowly, "an enemy of her species. Why would a human risk herself for that?" Vey'lara, still weak, still healing, answered before anyone else could. "Because to her," she said, "I was never the Empire. I was only someone who needed help." The commander said nothing for a long moment. In the Concord's 17 charted systems, across 1,000 years of expansion, they had built their power on strength, on hierarchy, on the cold logic of what a species could take. They had never once built anything on this. Years later, when the first true alliance between the Ashane Concord and the human colonies was signed, it was Vey'lara who insisted a single farmer's daughter from a forgotten grain world be present at the ceremony. Not as a diplomat, not as a soldier, but as living proof of the moment everything changed. Because empires are built on power. But humanity, the galaxy was only beginning to learn, was built on something power could never buy, the simple, stubborn refusal to let a stranger suffer alone. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human. If this story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars.